Hello and welcome to You've Seen It Before, movie reviews and connections in mind, and welcome back to another installment in my reaction series to each and every episode of Star Trek Picard Season 1. If you've never seen one of my reaction videos before, this is just a short form reaction series where I just give my thoughts on each episode of Season 1 as they come out, as soon as I see them. And give you my thoughts on the episode, what I thought worked, what I thought didn't work, and at the end, some analysis as to certain elements of the episode that may have seemed familiar to you and where you may have seen them before. Now, going forward, just get this out of the way, this is going to be a full spoiler reaction and analysis of Star Trek Picard Season 1, Episode 4. So if you've not seen the episode yet and want to wait until you have, stop the video at this point and come back later. But this is mine. Let's just get into my thoughts on Star Trek Picard Season 1, Episode 4, entitled Absolute Candor, in which we see Picard setting course for a Romulan colony world that he helped establish in the wake of the supernova that destroyed Romulus, 250,000 Romulans that he helped save from that world, including a young boy named Eleanor, who he left with a order of Romulan, essentially nuns who are also assassins, and he developed a affection for this boy 14 years prior to the events of this episode, and then this sees Picard coming to this world to recruit Eleanor, who is now a grown man and also a trained assassin in the art of this order, and he recruits him into this crew to save Soji, the android daughter of Data, who was the sister of Daj, who was killed in the original episode, in the first episode of the series. Also, we see Soji on the Borg ship, researching what the Romulan woman who talked to her in the previous episode before going insane, or who she was already insane. This Romulan referred to Soji as the Destroyer, and because Soji does not know what that means, she's already beginning to question certain things about her past and events that don't necessarily add up, and she begins researching in the myth of the Destroyer while her Romulan boyfriend / minder is working to seed doubt into her, as well as to, as he states in the episode, try to find out where any other synthetic life forms are before we destroy them all, even though he himself seems to have a personal affinity for Soji, as well as maybe just synthetic life forms in general. So that's where we see this episode proceed, and what I thought worked about this episode is we get to see that introduction of a new character, Eleanor, who is a pretty fair badass when it comes to as an assassin. He's got an interesting story in that he was a young boy who Picard he looked up to Picard at a young age, and when Picard left his life as a young child, he grew a sort of resentment to him. But then that sort of resentment conflicts with his order to this, his duty to this order of assassins, essentially, who are bound their swords to a lost cause in this episode, as it's stated. So that's interesting character motivation going there. So he's actually a pretty interesting character going forward. And I thought that we get to see more of Picard. They're building out the world of the galaxy in this far-flung future, 20 years after the events of Star Trek Nemesis. I think that's where this episode really works. We get to see more of the aftermath of what happened in the wake of the Romulan supernova, as well as the destruction of Mars by the synthetics, and Picard's retirement, how that had ripple effects throughout the galaxy as far as Picard, his relationship with this Romulan population was good at first, and then it soured. We get to see that going. I thought that worked really well. I also find it interesting that the captain of the ship that Picard is on, he's got all these. It seems he has more than just an emergency medical hologram. He also has a emergency hospitality program and a emergency tactical program, each looking like him but with a different personality. That's an interesting touch, and I'm curious to see what else happens with that. So that's a fun little detail. Also, it was kind of cool to see the Romulan bird of prey, the original series era bird of prey, rendered in this way that it seems how it can even though it's 200 or some years old at this point, it can hold its own against the smaller ship that Picard's using. That's kind of a cool thing. That space battle was interesting as well. I thought it was pretty decently done, even though it is kind of brief. The one thing that does concern me about this, the way this episode is handled, and I hope that the series doesn't go this way as well, is I feel like going into this that there was a understanding that the marketing was such that all these characters from the Next Generation, from Voyager, were going to come back into the TV. We obviously see in this episode that 7 of 9 is rescued by the crew, and she gets all of one line of dialogue in 10 seconds, but at the very end of the episode. Obviously, she's going to have a bigger part to play later, but this does point to a pattern of, I hope that it seems more and more likely that the other promised cameos that they're going to have at the end of in this series are going to be just brief cameos and not very integral to the story. Like, I hope that Hugh plays a bigger role than that brief scene, that brief couple of scenes we saw in the previous episode. I mean, that's just a remark on the series rather than just an episode. Obviously, in a more serialized series, you can drop a bombshell like this and leave. But of course, with all the marketing, because she was such an integral thing happening, it feels like, and the way that this is now a week-to-week thing, it's essentially the way that it's like, okay, we know 7 of 9 is going to be in the series at some point. We're just waiting around, waiting for that to happen. It's like, and she's there. Oh, nope, now I have to wait another week to see what else happens with her now. So that, I think, is a bit of a clash with the marketing department. Like, usually with these sorts of things, you don't, the marketing wouldn't so heavily show that like leading up to the series. That would be more of a at the end of the episode, and then obviously they tease more in the next week's episode, which next week's episode, by the trailer that they show, looks interesting, to say the least. So I'm curious to see where that goes coming forward. Some things that I noticed in this episode that may seem familiar, when Soji and the Romulan are essentially ice skating in the Borg Cube, and they have like their little rom-com moments. I mean, that's kind of a trope that you see in a lot of rom-coms, or just romantic scenes in movies. It's kind of like a go-to move when a guy wants to get close to a girl, sort of thing. An example of that could be in X-Men: The Last Stand with Iceman and Kitty Pryde. So there's that. Also, because Eleanor has is this orphan who is trained by this order of assassins, and then sent out to into the world to use his skills. I see that as sort of a trope that a bunch of superhero and other films have done in the past. Most obviously, I would say an analog can be drawn to Daredevil. How the whole thing worked, the orphan going into the order of being trained by this order and trying in the ways of a martial artist, an assassin, to fight in that regard. So, but there could be others there. Those are just the two that popped into my head at the time. Overall, I would say this was a decent episode of Picard, and it's definitely starting to pick up steam. I think my previous reactions will show that the flow of the episodes were a little more uneven. Now I think we're starting to pick up a little bit more momentum, and it's going. And if it continues this way, I see good things in the future of this series. So overall, very good episode. But what do you think of this Picard Season 1, Episode 4? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What about my analysis? Did I miss something? I probably missed something. Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate whatever audience I can get. Be sure to look back at this is my channel every Thursday evening, where I will be posting my thoughts to each and every episode of Picard Season 1 as soon as I can watch them and as soon as they come out. I'll also be sure to look for my movie reviews. My most recent one is for Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. I refuse to call it by its new dumbed down title. And also be sure to look for my, coming soon, my review of Sonic the Hedgehog, all that on my channel. And if you liked anything you see on my channel, be it this video or any other video on my channel, please give me a like, share, and especially subscribe. My goal for 2020 is to hopefully, with your guys' help, get up to at least 100 subscribers, and then I can get a more shortened URL for my channel. That would make things a lot easier. And I'd very much appreciate it. So if you would be kind enough to help me out there, great. Thank you. Like I said, you guys are the best. Thank you so much for watching. But just remember, there is nothing new under the sun. And yes, you have seen it before.